So I'm Catherine Hill. I'm the Talent Strategy and Operations Manager at the Insurance Cultural Awareness Network. So welcome and thank you for joining us today for this first skills masterclass around accelerating your underwriting career. So this is really all about supporting insurance professionals at all stages of your careers. And hopefully what it will give is the skills and insights and stories to grow, develop and thrive in the underwriting profession. So we're really going to be looking at what it takes to be the best underwriter. So we've got a brilliant panel of speakers lined up across different lines of business and lots of different experiences. And we'll go through the skills that help them succeed, what it takes to stay ahead, and how to overcome challenges. If you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to add them in the chat as we go as well. So what I'll do now is pass over to Dr. Anna Matter, who will be facilitating the panel. She is the Managing Director and founder of Masterclass, a specialist pricing and underwriting management consultancy. Anna is a pricing actuary by background and has experience across a variety of different geographies and worked with a variety of different organisations. So I will pass that over to Anna now.
Thank you, Catherine. So this is very exciting to be in this panel with so many experts on the underwriting field. I work closely with underwriters every day, and that's the most important aspect of insurance, more than anything else. So we will start with the first question for all panelists, whoever wants to take the lead on that. Can each of you briefly share how you got into underwriting and what's helped you to stay and grow in this profession? We'll start with you, David. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that was me. Happy to start. Yeah, so Dave Ovenden, I'm the Chief Underwriting Officer around at AXA. I guess I'm the oldest of the panelists, if nothing else. I won't suggest most experienced, but definitely oldest. I've been underwriting or responsible for underwriting and pricing for some 36 years now. So, but how I got into it, I was sitting in an economics lecture. I was doing a degree in economics, and a chap from Lloyd's of London came in and did a lecture about what Lloyd's did, and actually sparked my interest because I'm a really curious person. I love to know how things work. And actually, if you're going to be an underwriter, having that curiosity and that innate wish to understand things is a very powerful driver for a career. Because if you're going to underwrite a risk, it's useful to have some understanding of the processes and the practices that are behind that particular trade or aspect of risk. So that's how I started. I switched my course from being just pure economics to taking some insurance electives and some law electives. I did my thesis on London market electronic trading, and yeah, the rest is history.
Very interesting. Russ?
Insurance, and how do I get into underwriting? Hello, everyone. I'm Raz Mandar. I'm oversee the financial institutions portfolio here at QB. And how did I get into insurance? Well, I wanted to be a greengrocer as a child. I told my grandmother she could get free fruit and veg from me as a greengrocer. Insurance wasn't on my radar. You know, I'm from a working class background from the East End of London. My dad worked in the factory. My mum was a stay-at-home mother. Insurance wasn't there on my radar. A chance encounter with a lovely lady called Carol Capon at the time, 20 years ago at Miller, introduced me to insurance, and one thing led to another. And my journey, like I said, started 20 years ago. It's encompassed organizations like Miller, AIG, Travelers, Canopius, and now QB. I've been a broker, and I've worked at an MGA, Lloyd's, and insurance companies. And for me, you know, what helped me stay and grow in this profession, it's the people. It's the challenges. It's about making a difference to the world, you know, helping insureds to tackle some of the issues that they face. And it's rare that any 2 days are the same. It's nice that, you know, the people are so friendly, and yeah, it's really, and I love showcasing insurance to people like myself, because there'll be other people out there who insurance is the great unknown. So pulling back that curtain is just really exciting for me.
Wanda, are you going into writing?
Hi everyone, I'm Wango Halima. I'm a management liability underwriter at Aviva. And for those of you that don't know what management liability is, we basically provide cover for directors and officers and just ensure that they've got legal protection against claims arising from their managerial positions or decisions. And I got into insurance through, at the time it was called ACIN, but now it's as Equity, and that's a diversity network in insurance. And this was post university. I was kind of applying for jobs in the financial services realm, but never really thought about insurance as a viable, as a career path for me. I just never really thought about it. And I guess Equity planted the seed in my head. And then I did some research. One thing led to another. I did an assessment day for travelers, and I landed myself a graduate trainee underwriting role in bond and specialty. So it's quite rotational. So I wanted to have options and see what I liked. And that was really important for me. So I spent a lot of time in different teams within financial lines. And I'd say what made me stay, similar to Raz, is the people. I was really intentional about building an internal and external network. So things like iCAN definitely help with that. Also, Ladies That Lunch or LTL, they make insurance sticky for me outside of the job and the job satisfaction. That's definitely something that's made me stay.
Daddy, what was yours?
Yeah, I'm very similar. I didn't have any intentions of landing in insurance. I was a corporate lawyer for about 7 years in the city, and that was, I thought, my calling for the rest of my life. But I think for me, it was a chance encounter with a friend who set up an MGA, and he said to me, if you fancy doing a couple of hours a week, or you want a changing career path, we can make something together and really tackle the market. And I took the leap. I left a really secure corporate role, ended up being in a startup entity for about 4 or 5 years. We did really, really well. We grew to a team of about 11. We were then bought by AXA XL in 2019, and then I came over to head up the transactional risk practice, which I currently do at the moment. We've now got a team of about 30, which is really great. And what's helped me stay the most is just how dynamic the market is. Everything around us dictates what we do with our products, whether it's elections or the weather or any social impacts that's happening in the world impacts us on a daily basis. And I really find that challenging to work with because no day is the same. But I also think that in insurance, you've got a really nice blend of the technical expertise and the commercial expertise. If you can have both, and you will have both because naturally you evolve that way, you do help grow as a professional in that area.
Yeah, well, I think your stories are like more stories of people in insurance. Insurance found them, not they were suing insurance necessarily. So that resonates, I think, with most people.
Now I have to switch off the data. Yeah, this keeps them. And now this phone is dead.
Someone needs to be muted. Okay, thank you. So during your career, what technical skills or experience made the biggest difference to your underwriting ability to assess risk, and how this evolved as you became more senior?
Shall I go first again?
Okay, yes.
I think I was again. I had a brilliant start, so I was very privileged to be able to sit alongside for about 4 years. I was able to sit alongside some very experienced underwriters, and so effectively, I sort of served a type of apprenticeship, really, I suppose, in that they were very generous with their time and would explain to me what they were doing with some of the largest risks in the market, some of the most complex risks in the market, what they were thinking and how they were applying their sort of their experience to the risks. So I think that was just a very strong start for me, and it enabled me to pick up the stuff around understanding the nature of risk. I started as a property underwriter, so how the perils operate, how they interact with different features and processes, and the sort of aligning all that with the context of the deal. So whether it was a supporting broker or whether it was, as a transactional deal rather than some sort of relationship based thing, and then applying the correct terms and conditions to that to balance the outcome that you want to see in terms of winning it with the sort of the technical components of the risk. So a really good start. But I go back to that sort of soft skills thing as well. I remain intensely curious. So I think that curiosity sort of helped me, because I was just a sponge for information. I still to this day go on surveys. I still try and do a couple of surveys a year and go out and see our customers, almost feel, smell, touch the risks, and it just helps grow that understanding. The more you can see, whether whether you're watching them on video or whether you can physically get there, I think that's critical. And then over time, I think you move into, as you become more senior, you move into thinking about portfolios of risk and business units and businesses. But actually, I think for me, having that underlying understanding of risk assessment, making difficult risk decisions, building relationships with your brokers and clients, that stands you in good stead all the way through. Because if you're very senior, subsequently, your teams know that you did they know the basics, and I think it's quite powerful in a career when people understand where you've come from.
Franz, you want to go next?
Yeah, for me, starting out as a broker, I think one of the most important skills was using ears, listening. Going to David's point, being a sponge, soaking up as much information as you can. And I remember at the start, one of my mentors was telling me, when you're broking a risk or you're transacting the risk, the moment the underwriter picks up the pen, stop talking. Because all you're going to do is talk yourself out of a deal here. But it's moments, it's really about focusing and listening and understanding, because you have the exuberance of youth. We've all been there. We're all very excited, want to get a deal home. And where that energy carries through, but actually slowing down, pausing, giving thought to process the information, processing, listening to what's being said, what's coming back at you. Because often what you'll do is you'll go, here's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. When actually you can go 1, 2, stop, pause, hear what the other side has got to say in negotiation. You may not need the rest of the points. You may already have found an opening there. And that's been valuable, because listening to your clients, listening to what your broker has to say, rather than presumptively assuming that you've heard them, and sometimes just clarifying it, going, what I think you're saying is this, and just reaffirming that you've actually heard the right information to help you then process that risk is valuable. So I spend a lot more time now trying to stop talking and spend more time listening, and that's definitely helped throughout my career.
That's a very important skill, listening. Wanda, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say there were a few kind of crucial skills that I've picked up, likewise to Dave and Raz. I've been very lucky to have very experienced people in the insurance industry teaching me the fundamentals of insurance from the very beginning. And management liability is quite complex, very broad. And one thing that really was important from the very beginning was that financial acumen in accounting. And I'm by no means an accountant. And actually, my mum and sister are accountants, and that gene completely skipped me. I don't do the numbers like they do. But that was really crucial for D&O underwriting. And so I learned that through the job. I remember my first week, my manager would sit with me every day for an hour and take me through financial statements. So that in itself was really crucial and has changed my perception of, looking at, I never used to look at annual reports I didn't need to, and just trying to understand risks and trying to get to the basics of how a company works. Also from a legal and regulatory perspective, that's also really important for me to understand. And again, I had a really experienced wording specialist at Travellers who spent a lot of time answering my questions about wordings and how they work and bringing them to life. But I also then did the ACII that also kind of brought that to life a little bit through that insurance law module that I'm sure everybody finds really tricky. But yeah, and I guess coming back to management liability and kind of how broad it is, there's so many different industries that I underwrite. And, you know, in a week, I could look at mining, I could look at retail, I could look at pharma. But being able to kind of have a base knowledge is really important. And that comes with experience and time, but equally through the training that I've been afforded through all these people that are willing to spend the time with me, I've been able to pick up quite a lot. And also just in implementing kind of small things in my routine, like on my way to the office, I'll listen to the Financial Times podcast, and you don't realize how much your brain can absorb. But yeah, like being a sponge is really important. I think you're muted.
Tariq, what about you?
I think being part of a startup initially was a real eye opener for me, because you are trying to build trust in the market, in a very saturated market, trying to build a name and a brand for yourself. But I think that actually really helped me understand exactly what clients want. You know, it's not just about pricing, it's about service, delivery, execution. And the clients that I met, you know, almost 7 years ago now, are still with me today because they trust in the judgment, the analysis, and most importantly, delivering a good product on time in line with their standards. And I think I really understood, having a lot of face time with clients, I've really understood what the end goal was. It wasn't just about, we have to have a policy, this is mandatory. There was a much broader end goal for them. And so being sort of part of that discussion at a very high level and understanding exactly what their objectives were as a company, what the rationale behind it was, really helped me understand, you know, how I can differentiate myself in the market. You know, you got to really stand out, especially when the market is hard and soft. You need to think about how you strategize things properly, how you remain relevant in the market. And I think as I got senior, I really understood what the main commercial pain points were in any discussions, and how I could cut through those points, and how I could probably have a middle ground somewhere that was equal for both of us. Because it is a negotiation. You know, we're in a business where nothing is given. There are so many providers out there, and you know, you have to be flexible enough and commercial enough to do the right things, to make the right noises, so that you've got a repeat client for the rest of, you know, however many years you can have them for. And I think really being in the market early on and having to build that from scratch was really insightful for me.
And very interesting insights, and they all resonate with me as an actuary. We tend to focus on numbers quite a lot, but the success is at the end of the day, you need to make profits. How do you make profits? Price, it only takes you so far. You need to assess the risk and make sure that you've got everything in place to either avoid claims or minimize the quantum of those claims when they happen. So that all resonates with me as an actuary as well. So in terms of technology, we are all going through. We hear a lot in social media and, you know, in the market about transformation, pricing transformation, technology transformation, AI, also technologies coming into the insurance market. At this moment in time, what kind of technology you see would be a game changer for your underwriting on a day-to-day basis?
One of the things that we're currently working on and has been it's been a bit of a theme through my career. Because when I started, you'd have an underwriting manual. This is like, so you'd have an underwriting, and it was a physically printed thing. And actually it was quite useful because you could write your own learnings on it. So you could read the underwriting manual and you could scribble on it and say and think about where you've applied it, where it worked, where what situations, and you could bring your document to life. And of course, with the advent of the internet, all those manuals disappeared onto people's intranets and became weirdly less accessible than the paper ones. And often harder to find things. So one of the things that my mission to do is use AI and ML to re-engage people with those documents in a way that makes them much more accessible. So the first phase is simply attach a variant of choose your AI tool here, but in our world it's called Secure GPT. Attach Secure GPT to the front of all of our manuals and our appetite documents, and build some prompts that work for professionals. Because typically prompting from an AI perspective is done for people that don't understand the subject matter. Ask a question, the machine will then ask you another question to refine what you are thinking. Well, if you're a professional underwriter, that's annoying, because actually the questions about property. So why don't we help people frame their questions quickly and easily to get the answer they need quickly? So I think that I've called it here liberation of unstructured data, because insurers are absolutely jam-packed with unstructured data, surveys, underwriting guides, all sorts of stuff, video and images of claims and stuff. So liberating that and then delivering it to the underwriter's desktop so they can make brilliant decisions quickly and confidently is something that I'm really passionate about doing.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I mean, as an underwriter, you get presented with a huge volume of information and data. How do you process that? Now, whether you have your own models or whether you have the use of AI, whatever you can use to process that information to help you make a better decision is valuable. So just think about, can you use AI in your safe environment, whether it be your own in-house software or even your own models, whether it be using the likes of Capital IQ, and that's not product placement, but there are other models. But what can you use to condense that information, the volumes of year upon year financials, into one snapshot, so you can then go, actually, I can see the numbers here year upon year. Is this good? Is this bad? Is it relatively okay? So you can make those decisions. But one other thing I would definitely say is that thing, understated. I grew up in a Lloyd's environment where you'd have face-to-face interaction, and it's almost lost upon people now, picking up the phone and talking to each other. It's a relationship-based industry. So as an underwriter, use that. I mean, the generation now, we WhatsApp communicate to each other rather than speak to each other. And if you get a message, sometimes you'll read it, I'll come back to it later. But actually, human contact, a phone call, face-to-face meeting, I think it's so underrated. And for me, it's something I encourage my team to get involved in more, building those relationships, asking the probing questions in those discussions.
I very much echo the thoughts of Raz and Dave, but what I will also say that what's good about AI is it's also making a noticeable impact on day-to-day underwriting processes, like improving efficiency so that you have time for higher value tasks. Like, you don't necessarily have to spend time taking the minutes in a meeting or summarizing the documents or doing loads of admin heavy tasks. You can just rely, well, obviously sense check, but rely on AI to do those things. And that means that underwriters can spend more time and resource actually underwriting. I think that definitely helps with improving, well, having active underwriters that can actually do their jobs, because they don't have to do all the small things.
Daddy?
I think for me, because I'm transaction focused, we receive hundreds of legal reports and analysis from a lot of professionals, and it's so time consuming to walk through all those reports just to find out it's not relevant at all. And that was a real bugbear of mine when I first came in the industry, because we were just given everything you could think of, I presume because they were petrified of leaving something out, which I understand as well. But we've now got software that basically collects that report on your behalf, tells us the key points, the key facts arising out of it, and it allows us to make a really quick decision, whether it's something we want to take on, something we can discuss further, and then we store that and we use that to analyze trends going forward. So is that a really common theme now? How often have we seen it? How do we respond to it? And that also helps with product evolution. So we created new products around that. So all of those things have saved a lot of time and pain. They've allowed us to use information that we've got off the back of that to enhance our offering. And we're using that as a real selling technique. So when we have these major corporate clients that have all of these demands and needs from us, we can say we can streamline this whole process using this, and then we'll do demonstrations and stuff like that. And as far as I know, we're the only one that does it in the market, so that's a real selling point for us.
Yeah, your comments all echo with what I hear in the market. I mean, when we speak to underwriters around, what's your ideal workflow or technology, all they said is that we want the ability to quote the same day, which for most underwriters is not possible because they have to wait for data to be cleansed, to be entered in the models. If you think about how Lloyd's operated before, everything was done at the box, right? The broker will come, everything gets decided right there and there. There was no models, there was no need to cleanse all of this data, but that has changed. And so it put a lot more burden on the underwriter. And therefore the ability to quote on the same day is lost by that. And that's what they expect technology to do for them, being able to streamline the submission process and get to a quote really, really quickly. Tanik, how should underwriters adapt to changing regulatory frameworks and their impact on underwriting strategies?
I think that the key is really understanding the rationale behind those changes. A knee-jerk reaction from a lot of clients is, if you're changing something, if something is changed, that's got to be bad for us, surely. But that's not the case. You've got to really understand why it's happened, why it's beneficial, and upsell your product based on that. There's been a lot of focus on treating customers fairly and a lot of changes in that area, for example, when taking the client on that journey and not just having an announcement the day before saying, as of tomorrow, this is going to change, actually explaining this is why it's happening, this is the rationale behind it, we expect the outcome to be this benefits you in these ways, and as a result of that, you'll get this in return, which is better for you for these reasons. Our clients really value being on the journey with us. There's a lot of changes happening, not just with the FCA rules, but the Russian conflict and that kind of stuff that also impacts our underwriting. And being aware of those things and making sure that in terms of cover and in terms of the message to the market, that is business as usual, and we're in a better place now than we were before.
Yeah, absolutely. Russ, you've spoken a lot about your experience as a broker and how important relationships are. Can you give us some examples of how you navigate and leverage your relationship with brokers, reinsurers, and clients to drive the best outcome? And how do you build credibility with them? Underwriters rely so much on broker relationship to see a stream of businesses coming in. How do you leverage your relationship with brokers to achieve that?
Cool. Forget who the other party is. If you want to build a successful relationship with someone, I think you've got 4 aspects that you probably need to achieve. I mean, we've all had experiences where we've gone out, purchased something, and we know what good experience looks like and bad experience looks like. But typically when you think about positive relationships, they normally all start with the same kind of objective, and that's having an open mindset. So too often I've come across folks who have a glass half empty outlook as an underwriter or as a broker. They go, why should I write this risk? And they come from a negative approach, a very fixed mindset. Tell me why I should write this risk, as opposed to, okay, thank you. You clearly brought this risk to me. You think it might be of interest to me. Is there any reason why I shouldn't write this? And that's more of a positive kind of outlook. And starting off on the right foot, having that alignment, the first off, having that alignment of, we want to have a successful relationship. We want to work together. It's valuable. So being proactive, being positive, having that open mindset. And then secondly, understanding, what does success mean to you? What are you trying to achieve? And often we don't ask that question. If we're in a sales environment, we'll start to tell you, oh, I've got this amazing product, or this, but you haven't actually asked potentially what the other person wants. What does success mean to them? What are they looking to achieve? What's their critical outcome that they're hoping to achieve with this renewal or this piece of new business that they want to place with you? And just asking those questions. And then once you've understood what success means, quite frankly, to build that credibility is just being about upfront, honest, and having speed of response. There's nothing worse than going, at the other end of a relationship going, I've taken a risk into seeing an underwriter and they've sat on it for 2 weeks. You want to be able to manage that relationship. So, prompt, responses. I heard the other day, the chance of success on a piece of new business, if you respond within the first 24 hours, is more than double than if you wait over 24 hours. Just letting your brokers know, actually, thank you for sending this over. This is probably something we can help out with. I'll reach out to you. Are you available? So that, just having that frank, upfront, honest, speed of response really helps. And the fourth point really would be delivering on what you say you're going to do. And that's valuable. And there's nothing that frustrates clients, reinsurers, brokers more than people not delivering on what they said they could do. And and it works the other way around. If a broker lets you down, you naturally, it doesn't set the next time the broker comes in, you have that in the back of your mind. So it's about delivering on that. And the one final point I would add is, always be mindful when you're trying to build relationships with different brokers, reinsurance clients, that there are cultural nuances. And just take a moment to pause and understand some of those. Transacting business in the US and UK and Europe is very different to transacting business in the Middle East and Far East, and cultural differences. And I've seen it so many times when you have, and I'm not going to generalize anyone from a different group, but someone quite brash, not realizing actually doing business in, say, the Far East, and the hierarchical structure is very different. And in the UK, we have almost a consensus by WhatsApp decision when we come to making decisions, whereas it's very different. So just understanding that actually there are moments, you're dealing with global clients, global brokers, global reinsurers. How do they transact business in their region?
Raz, I've got a fantastic example of that, right? So I thought I was having a very, very successful meeting with a group of Japanese businessmen, because they were saying yes. Right? So when I said something, they responded with yes. So I was thinking, this is absolutely successful meeting. What the yes meant was, it meant yes, I understand, not yes, I agree. And until you got that, you were thinking you had great meetings, and then were wondering why nothing happened after them. It's really critical to know your audience.
Indeed. Especially we operate in a global environment, and Swiss reinsurers, German reinsurers, American insureds, everyone has been formed in a different background, in a different environment. And just understanding not everyone is like you, or not everyone makes the same decision. Some people take more time to come to a decision than decision made, let's move on kind of approach.
Yes, it's absolutely right. I mean, even simple things like the submission, how it is presented in different markets is very different. As I had experience seeing the same submission in the US and the same submission in London. They contain very different pieces of information, even though it's the same placement. You tend to have more information in the US than in the UK, particularly on the reinsurance side. So that's I never understood why would they do that. Why they don't give the same information to all the markets? But it's tradition. What the US requires is more thorough than what the UK markets are prepared to accept as data. So, David, as one of the most senior members of the panel, what are the paths from junior roles to senior leadership and what it takes to succeed? And what advice would you give to underwriters who want to step into more senior roles, whether it's technical leadership, portfolio management, or C-level roles?
I get asked this a lot, and I think because I think one or two of the other panelists talked about this. It's a privilege to talk about insurance, and people spent time with me when I was younger, and as a result, I sort of view this as paying it forward. And it's brilliant to be able to do it. One of the ways I think about this is if you've got an idea, because I think it's very difficult to say I want this to be this role, right? So I want my career is aiming at this role because that role might change, and it undoubtedly will change. So if you identify, I think blocks that have two dimensions. So one block for me is sort of these experience or knowledge building blocks. So there are some really core building blocks that are going to be powerful in an underwriting career. So depth of understanding about pricing, insight about portfolio management and the techniques that are in there. Understanding of reinsurance is a way to set yourself apart sometimes, because reinsurance sometimes gets viewed as a bit of a dark art. So understanding an extra level of detail about reinsurance than your next nearest person is quite useful. And of course, things like wordings and reserving. I'd wrap this up into a statement that says, try to really understand how an insurance company actually works front to back. If you understand that, you're often in a much better place than many others, because a lot of people concentrate on their job, on their role, and don't get me wrong, be the best underwriter you can possibly be, and great bosses will find you. It's one of the things that I reflect on, and has happened in my career. But if you build some really strong building blocks around technical componentry that supports underwriting, that will serve you well. How you get those experiences and how you get that learning and bring that skill into your repertoire is quite interesting, because you could take a job doing it, or you could be exposed to it through a project, or you could just teach yourself it, right? And find people to give you some insight and coaching, and reach out to you'll be surprised how many people respond really well if you just reach out and ask them some stuff. It happens in my organization. It always makes me smile when somebody just corners me and asks me some questions about whatever it is. So I would do that, because it actually improves your, I don't like using the word, but improves your brand, but improves your standing within the organization by asking intelligent questions. So I'd look at what you need, what building blocks do you think you might need, and then what ways do you want to get them is driven by the things you like doing. So what is it you like doing? Because you're going to be more successful if you get this experience in a way that supports what you like. So do you like doing deals? Do you get a thrill from landing a deal? Well, that's clearly, something you're enjoying. So maybe the way to do this is to get more exposure for different elements through trading, because you love doing the deal. So, or is it the academic, the mental gymnastics of trying to solve a problem? Is that your thing? Well, maybe a project is, a project that takes that discipline forward is the thing. So think about not just the what you need to know, but how you go about getting it, and try and align them with the way you like to work as a person, the things you love doing, because you'll be much more successful. And I think the other thing in this for me is that some people would coach you to be very Machiavellian. So don't think about the next job, think about the job after that. That's not how my career progressed. My career progressed because sometimes I happened to be in the right place at the right time. but critically, I saw that I was in the right place at the right time. I clocked it, and I was brave or stupid enough or lacked the imagination, whatever, to take on the challenge at that time. And I think that's really important, is to keep your head up and your eyes open, because if you're at the right place in the right time and you just walk straight past it, you'll never know you were at the right place at the right time. So, and I think opportunities tend to emerge if you can spot them and have the courage, or the lack of insight to grab them. So I found myself in Canada because of this. I sat next to a Canadian in a meeting once and was talking about career paths, and said, at some point I'd like to do an overseas secondment. I thought it'd be a really good life experience. And they said, right, well, when can you start? And so from a dinner, I found myself working in Canada. I volunteered for some IT stuff and made myself, when they started to explain to me what I was responsible for, I felt physically sick because I didn't understand the language they were using. It was really successful. They really helped me to learn that area. I think so for me, building blocks, grab those blocks in the way that makes most sense for you and things you like doing, and above all, keep your eyes open for the opportunities that are undoubtedly in your sphere. You've just got to see them and have the courage to grab them. That would be my sort of 2-minute overview.
Yeah, David, I definitely echo a lot of that. And one of the things I do when I've joined, or I've got new members of staff, I always ask them, where do you want to go in your career? Because ultimately you've got to be responsible for driving your career. And some people, that's the first time anyone's ever asked them that question. And it's very important, because actually to have an idea of where you might want to go, because a CEO is very different from a CEO. They've got different skill sets. And once we know where people want to go, as a people leader, my role is here to make better people, not better underwriters, better people. My role as a portfolio manager is to make better underwriters. But once I know where someone wants to go, it's always worth reminding them that life is not linear. We always see things in a linear form, but actually something you just touched upon there is, it doesn't have to be linear. You can go different places. You can work in different classes of business to kind of progress your career. Because the reality is, unless you work in a monoline insurer, you're going to be exposed at some point to different classes of business if you want to be a CEO. So having that experience is valuable. And for me, my career, the 20 years, I could probably split into two. The first half was all focused about product and being the best FI underwriter I could be, whether it be technical expertise, my client relationship, being commercial. And the second half of my career is probably more focused on portfolio management. And that's, it's a different skill set. I'm looking at analyzing portfolio profitability, where we want to grow, where we want to shrink, but also talent development. Do we have the right skills within the team to meet the goals that we want to do? So as you evolve in your career, you're going to get asked or pick up new skills, but just think about what, in terms of the best leaders that you come across, what made them so unique, what made them so special. And don't try and be a Mark II of that person. Be a Mark I of you, but just take the best of all the leaders that you've come across and own it in your own way. Because what you do here and now as an underwriter is not what you're going to be doing as a people leader of the future. And then start to extract what made this person so great. Why was I prepared to go and follow this person no matter where they took me? What was it about them? And then have that. So that's definitely something to think about.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's very important to always choose a path that you will enjoy, right? At the end of the day, you'll be doing these 8 hours a day and for however many years, right? Wango, what about how you see the underwriting profession and the roles evolving, and what skills or mindsets will be most in demand in the next 5 to 10 years?
So we talked a little bit about, tech and AI a little bit earlier on in the conversation, but I do really think that the underwriter of the future will be someone who knows how to leverage kind of tech and AI, but still bring those human elements and, the relationships that we've talked about, we've touched on that already, to the forefront, and bring it, use them kind of complementary to one another. So AI will always be a powerful tool, but it's realistically only as good as the person that's using it. So underwriters will need to learn how to input the right data and interpret the results kind of critically, and also then apply strategic thinking when making informed decisions. And I think AI will continue to evolve. I mean, it's changed a lot in the last 2 years. Who knows what it's going to look like in 5 to 10? But I think human judgment and the context and relationships will remain irreplaceable. And I think what makes Lloyd's or the London market so special is that human interaction piece. It's like the core of it. And I don't think that's going to go away. All the soft skills that we have, like negotiation and trust building and empathy, those can't be replicated by machines, hopefully. I mean, I hope not, otherwise we'll be out of a job. But I think these are all essential things for, building strong kind of underwriter broker relationships. And then that directly impacts, the submission flow or the leverage that you have when trying to win business and also retain business. And I also think that kind of in the world of like tech and AI, context really matters. And understanding a risk isn't just about the data. It's also about, meeting the clients. And in my, management liability world, understanding the governance and the culture. I don't know how well AI is going to be able to do that. When we go to a client meeting, you really do pick up on the culture. You listen to what is being said in the meetings, and that's something that's really hard to replicate through technology. So yeah, seeing the bigger picture beyond the spreadsheets and the data. And so I think the most in-demand underwriters in the next 5 to 10 years will probably be those that can kind of blend data fluency with, human insight and kind of bring that together.
That's a very important insight because you're doing with management liability, right? So management liability is how these people manage the company. The accounting is the accounting. So you could have two companies with the same accounting, but the people behind those accounts are very different.
Right.
So you have to have the meeting, much like what David said before. You have to go and see the site to see, okay, how this property has been maintained. Is this in line with what we get in the submission? Right. That is never going to be replaced with AI. It's going to make it harder, I think, for underwriters to have those skills because the computer seems to be the main thing now, and those other skills are not being developed in the new generations.
One of the things that picking up on what Wango was saying is that I think insurance companies are going to need translators, so underwriters that can talk to the IT people and describe what it is that they need to help them do their job better. We're going to need, we always needed and still need translators between the underwriting and actuarial community. Whether that translator is in the actuarial community or in the underwriting community, that role of translator between disciplines has always been important. But in a world where data fluency is expected, where technology is marching at a pace, where just things like regulation and standards are moving, being able to translate between different communities into your underwriting community is going to be is vital. And so if you find opportunities if you find interesting opportunities where you like, so if you've got a thing for data, or you're interested in tech, or you're interested in the way regulation and government works, you don't have to move into jobs that do that. You can take a half step into the gap that's between the two roles and bring it into underwriting. They're interesting jobs, those.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, we're collecting copious amounts of data on pretty much everything we do. But the trick is, how do we narrow that data set down to make it meaningful? And then how do we give it to our actuaries so they can have their own view on it? How do we give it to the claims people so they can have their own view on it? Because people interpret data in different ways. according to your business function. So I might look at something and say, oh, that means this, but actually in someone else's eyes, it could mean something completely different. So it's getting that uniform understanding as to what are we trying to achieve here. Do we have not just the data, but is it the right data? Is it the thing that's going to make us stand out in the market? Is it going to help us produce better outcomes? And one thing that I'm seeing in my own sector is a big push towards sustainability. So insurance is not just about a risk transfer anymore. It's about how do we make these companies more sustainable and really understanding the environment they're operating in. There are so many rules, regulations, drives, initiatives that they are all part of. And it's really understanding, I'm not just an underwriter. I'm not just making I'm putting a policy together. I'm actually creating a better outcome for these clients, and I understand how I do that, and also leveraging our expertise in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's gonna, the future is bright. It's fascinating to see how is that going to change. And just to close, so
Sorry,
for everyone,
Anna, just to interject, can we just make this one a very quick fire round, and then because we've got a couple of questions in the chat that I want to make sure we get to.
yeah. If every one of you would give one piece of advice to someone to stand out as an underwriter, what would that be?
Look for the opportunities for me. So keep your head up, look for the opportunities, inject your experience and skills, and be courageous and grab opportunity.
Be yourself for me. Be that one thing that makes you special. Don't try and be a Mark II of someone else. When I'm interviewing people, I can teach people underwriting. What I can't teach them is who they are. Own what makes you special and be proud of it. And yeah, that for me is really where the stellar candidates stand out in the market.
For me, it would be audacious. And under that kind of umbrella or audacity comes, being curious, asking the questions, signing up for things, and like being bold and saying out what you want to achieve and being intentional about achieving it and really setting yourself those targets. So yeah, being audacious for me.
I think creating a network of people that you can speak to, that you can not only speak to when it comes to professional issues, but socialize. We are in a market that's very close knit, and face-to-face networking, you can't replace that with a Teams call or a Zoom call. Go out there, socialize, talk to people, understand and listen as to what they actually want from you in the market.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Do we have any questions
So I know we had we spoke about the relationships with brokers, underwriters, insurers, and everything in between. I think there's a question about, as a manager of brokers, how do we get our brokers and underwriters to work better together? Is there any best practice advice? So building on from what we were talking about earlier, any best practice advice quickly?
One quick one for me is, so if you are an underwriter, always do what you say you are going to do. So if you make a promise to a broker, in fact, get in the habit of giving them a timeline to expect your response, and then always deliver on. So whether it's a yes or a no, or a maybe, I need more time, always deliver on your timelines. And if you're a leader of underwriters, make sure that your underwriting team is always doing what it says, because I think someone said that if you quote within the first 24 hours, your chances of getting it go up dramatically. But if you are always doing what you say, you've earned the right to make expectations of your broker, because it's like, I always do what I say. I sort of expect you to do what you say, and so it becomes much more adult to adult relationship rather than always doing what you're told.
I love that. The always deliver on your promise. If in doubt, under promise and over deliver. Someone's put in the chat.
Yeah.
Any other quick comments on that question?
To add To add to that, I would just say clear and open communication channels, and that might mean being in person with them, going for a coffee and talking about the risk rather than just, email trails and, back and forth over emails. If you're open and have clear communication channels, there tends to be a better understanding. And maybe it's taking a bit longer for you to get something over the line, but if you don't communicate that, the broker might just think you're not necessarily interested in the risk or not necessarily taking them seriously enough. So yeah, I'd say open communication channels.
I would say own what you say. It's very easy to have sort of a knee-jerk reaction and dismiss something or not want to explore it a bit further because it's not the market norm or it's a bit off-piste. But I think there is always a conversation to be had. I don't tend to turn down submissions out of hand. I give it detailed thought. I mean, a lot of underwriters see brokers as quite pushy, and a lot of brokers see underwriters as not responsive. But actually, if you give it the time of day and if you really think about it and come to an informed decision, they would appreciate that a lot more than radio silence.
Amazing, thank you. Another quick question about someone trying to transition from customer services into underwriting, with bearing in mind that there would be kind of a visa requirement on the apprenticeship program. So any advice to someone kind of transitioning into customer services with a visa? From customer services into underwriting, sorry.
I think insurance is doing very well at attracting diverse talent. Now, I'm not a visa expert, so I'm gonna pause on that. But what I would say, there are great opportunities. So if you go on the iCAN vacancy board, look at there's various different insurance boards that are available that you can look at where the opportunities are being advertised. Apologies, I can't touch upon the visa issue because I'm not fully aware of. Someone from HR will probably be better on that. But first things first, look at those boards, see what the opportunities are out there, see if they're a good fit. Do they interest you? Are those the roles and the companies the ones that you want to be working with? Do they have the same values? Does it interest you? Something that David said earlier on. Is it something that you find interesting and motivating? So I would probably start there and then build from there. So apologies, I'm deliberately ducking the visa aspect because I'm not the expert on that one.
I would probably say not so much advice, but it's encouragement. I mean, if you're already in customer service, you're halfway there, because underwriting is about providing a service. It's about being good at what you do and delivering. So, if you are, worried about that transition, how big of a step it is, yeah, there's going to be some learning involved in it, but actually you're pretty close already. So just keep going and apply for roles that you think you're going to enjoy. A lot of carriers have schemes, and there's a Lloyd's grad scheme as well. So there's plenty of stuff out there. Research the market. There's always something going on to develop your skills in different ways. ACI is a great way of doing it. I did that myself, and I've found it really beneficial. So just stay positive and look out for roles that suit you on your skill set.
Great, thank you.
I was also just going to add to really tap into different networks that can help you find those entry level roles like iCAN that Raz said already, but also there's Empower Development. There's quite a few that will highlight entry level roles into insurance, and that will be helpful as well.
Definitely. There are a couple of questions, but we are at time, so we will come back with. We'll share the questions around to the speakers and put that in our key takeaways, the answers. So I just want to say a massive thank you to our panel and moderator, and thank you for all of our audience and attendees for joining today. So hopefully there's some practical tips and tricks to take away and show the opportunities and kind of variability of what's available in an underwriting career. And I think there's a few things that stood out to me around kind of the blend of technical and commercial experience, the ability to flex to people, how working out how an insurance company works and what impacts those companies, and really thinking about the building blocks of your knowledge as you look out for opportunities throughout your career. So if you're interested in finding out more about underwriting, we have a mentoring platform with lots of underwriting professionals on there. And again, if you're looking for a new role, We have lots of opportunities on our jobs boards. We're happy to chat to anyone who's looking for career changes and offer any advice. So just to close everything off, if you're not a member of iCAN, please sign up to stay up to date with our events. We've got lots going on. We've got a couple of events next week, a coffee with the CEO, a Manchester networking barbecue. We're in New York in a couple of weeks' time, in Birmingham, and then we've got a big ERG conference in October. So please sign up and hope to see you again. And a big thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.